Hey everybody, it is your professor, your coding friend, and your grill master, and today we're going to talk about CSS some more. So before we get started, go over to Canvas, click on this bad boy, it will take you to here, make sure you're logged in, hit Remix, go to Settings, edit project details, change the name to something that makes sense, and hit Save. Okay, and then once you're done that, let's do some CSS. So, again, CSS is a way of changing the style. Last time we talked about how to select your HTML elements, and this time I'm going to talk about how you can change them up. First, we're going to talk about text because this terminology is probably going to be the most familiar. So first, to change the color of your text, you can change the foreground color. So you select the thing that you want to change, you say color, colon, and then the color you want the text to be. There are some pre-named colors that I have linked in the Canvas page. You can also use hex code, RGB, HSL. They've got RGB, HSL have some specific terminology or like grammar that you have to use to get them to work. I'll show you that in a future lecture that's all about color. Hex is probably the easiest to use. Just use that hex, that pound sign, and then use your 6 letters and numbers that you can get off of Adobe Fonts. You just Adobe Color. You just copy and paste it. Put it in, and it'll know what to do. To change up your font family, and I think I'm going to put my face over here for today, you just need to say font-family and then the font that you want. CSS is very specific about things that have spaces, so anytime you have 2 words for a single command, you must put a dash between them. There are certain fonts that are web safe that all computers know what they are and can display them. I have a link to a list of them on the Canvas page. If they have 2 words to them, again, CSS is very specific about spaces, so you have to put quotes around anything that has 2 words to it. If you have something like Arial or Times, you don't have to put these quotes, but I recommend doing it when you're first starting off so that you don't have to worry about remembering it and switching back and forth. But if you have something that is 2 words, you must put these quotes around it so it knows it's just one font. I'll tell you how to bring in specific fonts later, like if you want to use Google Fonts or Adobe Fonts or download your own. That takes a little bit more coding, but I will show you how to do that later. Fallback fonts are the fonts that load if your preferred font cannot load on the computer. So say you have a Google font you've linked in, but Google's down, the computer can't reach it, and so it'll go to the next line in the list that you've established for your preferred fonts. So here I have 2 fonts listed. My preferred font is first, comma, and then my fallback font. You can have as many of these as you want, but the last one should always be a generic. And these are all of the generics: serif, sans serif, monospace, cursive, and fantasy. For font size, if you want something to be a different size, you just say font dash size and then the size that you want it to be. It will take the units pixels, EM or REM. You may have heard of M from your type class. 1 M is equal to the font size. So whatever element it is, if you've established what font size it is or of a parent element that it's inside of, if you say EM, it'll say, okay, I know that things inside of this paragraph are 12 point and you want this section to be 0.5 EM, I will make it half that size. So here, if I said 0.5 EM, that would make whatever I'm styling 6 points because the thing that it's inside of this paragraph is 12. So I'll do half of that font size. REM is a fun one. R stands for root. So the HTML is the most parent, the top parent tag inside of your HTML document. You start that first tag as HTML and then the head and the body are inside of it. So HTML is considered the root. And when you go into your CSS and you say, hey, I want the HTML tag to have 16 points, if you say later on that you want your paragraphs to be 1 REM, it'll go back to that HTML, the root, and say, okay, 1 is 16, so I'll do that. I like using that because you're always referencing back. It's always proportional, so you're referencing back to that same number all of the time. You don't have to keep track of what parent element you're referring to. And also, if you change that HTML font to something else, everything else will proportionally change because it's all referencing that one number. So you don't have to go back and change each of your individual ones. It's all relative. It's very nice. It's very clean. You can also do relative sizing, so smaller or larger, or do a percentage. You can also do these absolute sizes. Medium, I believe, is 16 points, and then you can say it larger or smaller, and it will do those. Font weight, if you want something to be bold or skinny, you use font-weight, and then you can use the words normal or bold. You can use relative, so you can make it lighter or bolder than its parent text. You can also use numbers, which I see used a lot. So 400 is considered normal or book, and 700 is considered bold. You can go up even higher than that, depending on the font. So if they have ultra bold or ultra mega bold, you can go even higher. And then something like 200 would be considered light. To get italics, that's font-style, and then italics, that's also how you get oblique. Only use oblique if the font actually has an oblique style in it, because that's just taking the normal letters and slanting them a little, versus italic is designed to be slanted. So if you have your font that uses oblique that's part of its font family, you can go ahead and use it, and this is how you get it. Lettercase, so if you want something to be all uppercase or all lowercase, you don't have to type it all out that way. You can instead type like normal, and then come into your CSS and do text-transform and say uppercase to get all uppercase, lowercase to get all lowercase, and capitalize to do capitalization for the first letter of every word for something like a title. If you want to change up your leading, you use line-height and then a unitless number. So 2.5 would be 2.5 times the font size for this paragraph. So if it was 12 point, it would be 2.5 times that 12 point. You can use normal or percentages or RAM, but you should use just this unitless number. You can change the spacing between individual letters and get some tighter or looser tracking by doing letter-spacing, and then how much space you want between them. And again, these are the units you can use. You can change up alignment, so we're sort of getting into the paragraph functions here. You text-align, and you can do center, left, right, and justified. You can also decorate your lines, so you can do underlines, slashes, all that good stuff. You have a couple of options. You can just do one word and just say, I want it underlined, I want it slashed through, or you can use 3 words and you can get a little more specific. The first one should be the style that you want. So what kind of line do you want it to be? Underlined, overlined, line through. The next one should be the color. You can do color same as everything else, hex code, pre-named colors, RGB. And then the next one is style. So do you want it wavy? Do you want it dashed? Do you want it doubled or solid? And so you can just give it a generic, or you can make it very specific. You can change the background color of any element. So you can have your text have a background color, you can have the body have a background color, you can have the HTML have a background color. And you just do that background dash color and then the color as we've been using. So let's actually put some of this into practice. So first up, we're going to change the universal style, and we're going to change the padding and the margin to 0, and I'll show you why again. And then we're going to style the HTML or the root element. And we're going to give it a background color, so it'll be a background color that applies to our whole website. We're going to change the font family, the font size, and the color of the text. Okay. So let's go in. So first, let's do our universal styling. So again, the star individually selects everything. So this is an easier way of saying like H1, comma, H2, comma, paragraph, comma, list elements. You don't have to do all that. You just say everything should have the style of. And I'm going to change the margin and padding because you can see here on this left side that there's like this weird gap here, and I don't want that there. So I'm going to say margin :0 and padding :0 semicolon. And there we go. So those weird negative spaces are gone. And now I'm going to change up the styling. So I had been putting these into the star because I hadn't talked about the HTML before, but now I'm going to start moving them into the root tag. So the HTML tag is the most parent, the biggest parent. So it is the first tag that you put into your HTML document. So it's the parent of everything else. And so all these other things will take on the styling of this HTML tag until I give it a more specific style. So I will say, what did I want? I wanted to give it a background color. So background dash color. And because this applies to the whole HTML document, it will be the background color for the whole website. And so I have the colors in here. I gave you the hexes so you can just copy and paste them. You don't have to memorize them. So that gives me a dark background. Oh, but now my text is gone. So let's change the color of the text with just color. And I gave you a hex code for that too. Okay, and that changed the color of all of my text because it's all children of the HTML. Okay, and then I'm going to change the font size. Yeah, font size. I'm going to change it to 16 pixels. And then I'm going to change my font family to Tahoma, and I'm going to give it a fallback of sans serif. And there we go. So I've styled my text and my background and my color. Cool. Okay, and so, already did that. Okay, so part 2. We're going to change the H1. So we're going to make it a bit bigger. We're going to change up its color so it has more contrast and it stands out more. We're going to make it all uppercase and bold, again for hierarchy, and we're going to put it in the center. So to do that, I'm going to select my H1, and then I'm going to say font size, and then 3.5 REM. And so that REM is saying be 3.5 times the size of this. So you can see it got bigger. And then I'm going to change the color so that it has more contrast. And that's just going to be right here. Bloop. Okay, and then I want it to be all uppercase. So text transform uppercase. There it goes. Okay, and then I want it to be bolder. It's already the default style of bold right now, but I'm just gonna double down on it. Font weight 700. Okay, and 700 means bold. And then text align center. Boop, there it goes. Okay, so I have my title styled. Again, that just selected the H1. My other stuff is still that styling from my HTML. Okay, so now we're going to change up our H2s. I'm going to change it to be a little bit bigger, so it's still larger and higher in the hierarchy than my paragraph text, but not so much as my main title. I'm going to underline it with a dashed underline and give it this color, and I want it to be bold. And then I want to change up my list elements, or my line items? List items, to give them a looser leading. Okay, so I want to show you my HTML real fast. So you can see here I have my H2, and again another H2, and then I have these lists right here, and this is what they look like over here. Beep, beep. Okay, so first let's change up these H2s. So I want them to be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to say font size 1.5 REM, and because I'm using that R, it's referencing back to this root, so it's 1.5 times the 16 pixel size. Okay, and then I'm going to say I want to underline it, so I'm going to give it text decoration. And so I'm going to say what kind of line I want. I want an underline. I'm going to say the decoration or like the style type, and I want it to be dashed. And then I want the color. And there we go. Very nice. So it's underlined, it's dashed, and it's got this color to it. Very nice. Okay, and then my next thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to loosen up the leading on my line, my list items. So I'm going to do LI, and I'm going to say for leading, line height, 2.5, and it's a unitless number that says 2.5 times the size of that font, which is the default, so it's this 16. So you can see it's looser. All right, and now we're going to change the color of the link. So here I'm going to say a link. I'm going to change the color to the color over here. Here it is. And the colon link is that, again, that pseudo class for an unclicked link. I already clicked on it earlier, so it's a dark purple, but you haven't clicked on yours, so it'll look like a nice red color. Okay, the other thing I want to show you real fast, and you don't need to do this. Shoot, I need this to be higher contrast. All right, I'm going to change this up. You don't change this. I'm just showing you stuff. There we go. Okay, so you would think if I did text align center, that this would move the link over. It doesn't. So there are certain things that will align to text align and some things that won't, and links are one of them. We'll talk into these different types of things that can be moved and can't be moved with text align and how you can change those properties yourself so that you can force this thing to move around. We'll talk about that later. It's a little more into the deep end of CSS and how this code actually works and operates. But if you have something that isn't being centered and it's not text, it might be because it is the wrong type of thing, like links, and just either find a workaround or wait. Wait until we cover it. Okay. All right, so going out of text styles into the styles of other things, you can change the opacity of stuff, including text, but also other things. But just saying opacity, 1 is fully opaque, and then 0 is fully transparent, and anything in between is opacity. Again, it's a unitless number for that one. You can also add a background image. So that's just background, lowercase b, background dash image, URL, parentheses, quotes, I'm forgetting the names of things, and then the link to that thing, semicolon. So you can change the background to anything, to the whole HTML document, to your text, whatever. If you want to put an image behind it, this is how you put an image behind it. The other thing about this is you should only include images that are purely decorative this way. If it is something that is integral to the understanding of the web page, if someone can't see that and it doesn't make any sense when they can't see it, you should be putting that into the HTML because screen readers aren't reading out the CSS. The CSS is just decorative. It's not critically important information. So if you have an image that's purely decorative, go ahead and put that in your CSS. But if it's something that's important to the information on the page and you need someone to see it, you should put that into the HTML. Okay, you can change the width and height of anything by saying height and then giving pixels. You can do EM and REM here, percentages. We've talked about auto before, and also width, colon, and then the size of it, the size that you want. You can also do MinMax Dimensions. So if you want something to be, I did viewer width and viewer height before, which I should also put in here. So if you want something to be the width of the page, like the width of the screen that someone's looking at it on, but you don't want it to get bigger than the size of the image, like, because then it will pixelate it, you can say, okay, the height can, or the width can be the width of the screen until it gets to this many pixels, and then it stops growing. So max height, max width, min width are really nice for controlling something getting too small to see or too big to display without pixelization. You can also change up the style of your bullets and your numbers on your lists. So if you don't like the bullets, if you don't, and you want them to just be gone, you can just say none. Or if you want them to look cool, you can say disc, circle, square, and then your little circles will change into discs and squares. You can also change them into just whatever icon that you want. You can also say for the number ones, upper Roman, or any other type of like numerical way of listing things out. So let's go and change some stuff up with this new info. So first, we're going to change our background color into a background image. I recommend if you have a background image on your website, especially if it's dark, to also have a background color. That way, if the background image doesn't load for any reason, the background color will always load as a backup. And then we're going to style up our image. We're going to change it to 70% opacity, not because it looks good, but just because I want you to practice opacity. And we're going to change its maximum height to 500 pixels. So let's go change that up. So, down here, under my link, or actually, I'm changing up, sorry. Yeah, we're changing up our background image first. Okay, so up here, above my background color, I'm going to do background image, IMAGE, and it's going to be URL, parentheses, quote, and then the link, and then it ends with a semicolon. Okay, so I'm going to go get that link. It's just under assets. And you can see here, I've got a couple of options. I'm going to go with this one. It's just sort of like a silly 90s repeating font. I'm going to go back to my CSS and just paste it in there. And there it goes. Very nice. I had some people have a hard time getting it to load last year, so if it doesn't load, try the other one. I don't know why that didn't work. I couldn't figure it out, but it should work. Okay. And then the next thing we're going to do, what did I say? We're going to change up the image. Okay. Image size. So down at the bottom, I'm going to change up my image. To select image, I'm just going to say IMG. And I'm going to change the opacity so that it's a little bit transparent. I'm going to say 0.7. So 1 is fully opaque. So 0.7 is 70% transparent. So you can see a little bit of that background pattern behind the dog. Okay, and then I'm going to change up his height. I said max height, but let's just do height. 500 pixels. And then I want my width, just like I did before, to be auto. That way it doesn't squash and stretch it. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. And again, auto, when you say auto, is just please conserve the proportions. So whatever I've set this to, it'll automatically change the width so that it doesn't squash and stretch. Okay, and we're going to change up our bullet styles. So we're going to change the bullets to squares and the numbers to upper Roman. So my first list here is, I've set it as a bullet, as a unordered list, and the second one I've set as an ordered list. So let's change those up. And to select the list items in my unordered list, I'll say ULLI. And I'm going to change the list style, so list dash style dash type, that's a long one, to square. Oh, it doesn't like me. I was wondering why it wasn't pulling up my... ones earlier. Let's see if it works for the other one. O-L-L-I. Okay, I figured it out. It's because they were hidden. So I didn't have any spacing on the left, and so it cropped them off. They're there. So I'm going to have this in your code already when you're doing it, so you won't suffer as I have suffered. All right, and then we're going to change our numbers to these Romans. So first you can see these little squares are here, and they're looking cute and stylish and fly, and we're going to change the ordered list items to be this same. I'm just going to copy and paste it. This is a pain in the butt. And then I'm going to change this to upper dash Roman. And so now you can see these, ooh, super classy numbers. Okay. All right, so those are some very simple CSS styles. Get you started. So we styled some text, we figured out how to add colors, change fonts, that sort of thing, how to change the alignments, all that good stuff. And next class, you'll do an assignment that practices all these things, because it sounds like it's a lot of stuff, but once you actually start using it, it just becomes part of your brain space. So we'll get some of that practicing in next time, and I'll see you then.